So, believe it or not, I went back to look at my samples again, and then I decided I had a problem with the original sample 3. And the original, okay, and so which I haven't changed, but I did change the score. So this is sample 3, and Socrates, of course, is told by the god that he is the wisest. Upon hearing this, Socrates decides that he will try to find someone who is wiser. So remember that I said that precision points were added, or there were higher precision points for this sample versus the last one because some details are being added to the answers, some important details to help us make sense of the claims that were originally presented in sample 2 and to develop a coherent, compelling discussion of the topic. And of course, there's the transitions, but then I decided there's an issue with accuracy potentially here. And so I decided, you can see right here, that accuracy could be a problem because something may be distorted or may be misrepresented. As such, I have lowered this accuracy score for sample 3 to 11 from 8, and so the overall score has gone from 84 to 80. Now, what is the issue? This says, Socrates decides that he will try to find someone who's the wiser, and then following this, him doing that, right, he decides that he doesn't know and he thinks he doesn't know. But is that a fair and adequate representation of what Socrates knows? Is that really the thrust of his conclusion? No. The thrust of his conclusion, or the importance of the result for Socrates after examining the politicians or engaging with them, is that he realized he has an advantage over them. And the advantage is that, of course, the politicians think they know when they don't know, while Socrates is not under the illusion that he knows. So he doesn't know and he doesn't think he knows. So the thrust of his result, of what he decides after examining the politicians, is that he has an advantage over them with respect to knowing and thinking one knows something. So that part of the answer that needs to be there is addressed later in sample 4. Is it sample 4? Almost. It's really not fully addressed. The need to stress the fact that, Socrates concludes that he has an advantage over them in some way until we get to sample 5. But sample 3 makes it seem like the main conclusion of Socrates is that he doesn't know and he doesn't think he knows. But that's not enough to, fully characterize, fairly characterize what it is that exactly that he's concluding or deciding he's learned from his investigation with the politicians. So then if we go to sample 4, he does, in this sample I said earlier that sample 4 is better than sample 3 because he does bring in, some more information about the politicians, but the same thing still applies here. So what applies is that the thrust, we have more details about the result of his engagement with the politicians, right? We know what the politicians think they know, and we know that the politicians think they know, but Socrates doesn't think they know anything, right? And you can see that he's comparing himself to them because he says, while the politicians think this or claim this, while I claim this and don't think this, but still the thrust of the advantage is not there. So that's something we want to emphasize, is that he thinks that this is an advantage somehow. Now, why exactly is it an advantage isn't part of the discussion questions that were listed above. But again, I would take off for accuracy there, a potential issue with representation. I'm not saying that they're saying something false, but the answer as developed for that question is incomplete and therefore may misrepresent what's going on there. And so I would change this to 11 actually, and this person would get an 88 or a B+. Now, if someone were to take this answer, okay, and then say, insert here, right, after engaging with politicians, Socrates decides he has an advantage over the politicians in the following way, period, the politicians think they know something when actually they know nothing, while Socrates claims to not know anything and doesn't think otherwise, then they would get full points for accuracy. But they'd have to bring in the part, have some wording that emphasizes or calls to light the fact that Socrates thinks he has some kind of advantage. We've got to bring that word in there for accuracy's sake when saying and developing and teasing out what this advantage is. So again, who knows? I might come back to you with this. And maybe even while you were watching the videos and coming up with your own response, maybe you were critical of what I said and did in the first place, and that's fine as long as we're using these standards and using the original text and the questions themselves to make our case. So again, another point is even I can miss things. Even I might need fresh eyes to look at things. And this is a new test tool that I've developed. So, it's not yet polished, but I continue to work on it. Okay, all right. I hope that is the last update I have for you.